Welcome to the Bear Pit, Minister. I'm not going to spend too long on CAP reform because you've got the impossible to do to try and satisfy so many different aspirations from so many latitudes, longitudes and cultures, etc. But I'd like to set you a couple of challenges for your 6 months. Two things that you really could tidy up and progress things on. As you know, about 18 months ago, there shouldn't be one egg in Europe produced in a battery cage. But we all know that there are battery cages still in existence where chickens are still laying eggs in them. I would like you to winkle out or root it out so we can say that by the end of your presidency this isn't happening anymore. Now, the other issue I want to talk about is a question of facing reality. Over the last few years, it's become more and more difficult to get hold of, to procure non-GM soybeans or soybean meal. The farmers in North America, Central America and South America all prefer to grow GM soya. There are certain supermarkets and users of livestock products that can be fattened on soybeans. They still insist that it's non-GM. And because of the pressure of the green lobby, any admixture between non-GM and GM can force a boat to turn round. It isn't unloaded. Because of the risks of this, the shippers are giving up importing non-GM soya. And that's had the effect over the last few months of putting the price up from £250 a tonne to £275 to £300 a tonne, and on Friday, I am a user of this material, I was quoted £685 a tonne. At that point, I said to my egg packers, I would rather kill my chickens than feed them soybeans at that price. It's uneconomical. Fortunately, other farmers are in the same position, and we've now all been told you can use soya from any source. That means that in Europe, virtually all the soybeans, all the protein that is fed, will now be imported soya. And yet there are imported GM soya from overseas. And yet there are countries in Europe that could easily produce this to supply the market. And I'm thinking particularly of Romania and Bulgaria. Now, we in the United Kingdom are going to throw open our doors to residents of these two countries on the 1st of January, and it's expected that 1.5 million people will come. Now, I would much prefer, instead of 1.5 million people coming from those countries, 1.5 million tonnes of soybeans came from those countries, and that you allowed them to cultivate GM soybeans so that they could export them rather than having to import from across the sea. That would have another spin-off effect, because it would create some wealth in those two countries, and they might then be able to afford to get rid of their battery cages and use colony systems. Thank you.
On animal welfare, let me say that in Lithuania we are attaching great significance to this issue, and we'd like to see adequate attention to this issue across the EU, and in this regard we'd like to urge all the member states to base their activities on the on scientific findings. Let me say that on the 28th and 9th of September we are organizing a conference in Lithuania on animal welfare and animal feeding. I'm planning to participate in this conference myself, and I will be looking forward to welcoming you at the conference too. A few words now about the EU and US negotiations. The first stage of the negotiations has just started in Washington. The importance of these negotiations cannot be overestimated. I do hope that they will proceed smoothly, but it's very difficult now to forecast the results of these talks. We will seek high animal health and plant health standards during these negotiations in order to protect human health, but at the same time we'll be trying to remove trade barriers. We'll focus on the principles of mutual respect and trust.